Hello, my dear listener, and welcome back to our video lesson, which was specifically created for the distant learners of economics field. And wishing you a good day, we will start today's lesson. And today we will talk about Unit 16, International Trade. My name is Khachor Vanigina. I am an English teacher of Kashgar State Technical University. Let's get our lesson started. And let's see what we are going to learn today. First, we will understand the fundamental principles of international trade and its role in the global economy. Secondly, we will explain the difference between exports and imports with real-world examples. Thirdly, we will identify and evaluate both advantages and disadvantages of international trade. And finally, we will practice passive voice construction in economic and trade contexts. Before starting, let me ask you some questions relating the topic. The first question: what products does Uzbekistan export to international markets? Consider both traditional and modern exports. Second question: why do countries engage in trade with each other instead of producing everything domestically? And the last question, is international trade always beneficial for all participating countries? What are potential drawbacks? And now I would like to talk about international trade, one of the most important parts of the global economy. International trade means the exchange of goods, services, and capital between countries. It helps nations buy products they cannot produce easily and sell the goods they produce efficiently to the world market. In today's modern world, almost every country depends on international trade. No country can produce everything perfectly by itself. Different countries have different natural resources, technologies, climates, and labor skills. Because of this, some countries become experts in producing certain products. For example, Saudi Arabia exports large amounts of oil because it has rich petroleum resources. Japan exports advanced technology products like cars and electronics because of its highly developed technology sector. Meanwhile, countries with fertile land, such as Brazil, export coffee and agricultural products. There are several key concepts in international trade. First, exports are goods and services sold to foreign countries. For example, Uzbekistan exports cotton, fruits, and textiles to many countries. Exports help businesses grow and increase national income. Second, imports are products purchased from other countries. Uzbekistan imports smartphones, machinery, and vehicles because producing them locally may be more expensive or difficult. Another important concept is the trade balance, which is the difference between exports and imports. If a country exports more than it imports, it has a trade surplus. China is a good example because it exports enormous amounts of electronics and manufactured goods worldwide. However, when imports exceed exports, a country experiences a trade deficit. The United States often imports more products than it exports, especially consumer goods. International trade has many advantages. Consumers can enjoy a greater variety of products at lower prices. For example, people in Uzbekistan can buy Korean smartphones, Turkish clothes, or American laptops. Trade also creates jobs, increases GDP, and encourages technology transfer between nations. However, trade also has disadvantages. Some local industries cannot compete with cheaper imported products. For example, small local factories may struggle when foreign products enter the market at lower prices. In some cases, workers lose jobs in industries that cannot survive international competition. Modern smartphones are one of the best examples of global trade. An iPhone may be designed in the United States, use chips from Taiwan, screens from South Korea, be assembled in China, and then sold all around the world. This shows how connected the global economy has become. In conclusion, international trade plays a vital role in economic growth and global cooperation. Although it brings certain challenges, it allows countries to share resources, improve living standards, and connect economies worldwide. And now I would like to check your understanding by asking you some questions relating the topic. So first, what is international trade in your own words? Second one, what is the fundamental difference between exports and imports? Third one, what conditions create a trade surplus situation? The fourth question, name 2 specific advantages of international trade. And the last one, what potential risks are associated with international trade? So now we will read the statements below and make up our minds by marking true or false answers. You'll be given 30 seconds and you may take extra time by pressing pause. And after 30 seconds, we will start checking out our answers. Good job, everyone. Now let's check the true or false activity together and explain the answers. So first, exports are goods bought from other countries. That's false because exports are goods sold to other countries. And next, trade deficit occurs when imports exceed exports. That's true. A trade deficit means a country buys more goods from abroad than it sells. Third one, international trade increases product variety. That's true. International trade allows people to buy products from many different countries. Fourth one, all countries produce the same goods efficiently. That's false. Countries have different resources, technologies, and climates, so they specialize in different products. Fifth one, trade surplus benefits domestic economy. That's true. A trade surplus can increase national income and strengthen economic growth. Sixth one, imports can affect local producers. That's true. Imported goods may create strong competition for local businesses and factories. Seventh one, international trade reduces globalization. That's false. International trade actually increases globalization by connecting countries economically and culturally. Eighth one, trade balance measures exports and imports difference. That's true. Trade balance shows the difference between the value of exports and imports. Excellent work, everyone. Through this activity, we can better understand how international trade affects economies, businesses, and everyday life around the world. Alright, and now we will match the words from A to H with their appropriate definitions. And after 30 seconds, we will check our answers together. Alright, and now let's check out the answers. First one, export matches with goods sold to foreign countries. Second word, import, matches with goods purchased from abroad. Third word, trade surplus, matches with sentence, situation when exports exceed imports. Fourth word, trade deficit. This is the situation when imports exceed exports. Fifth word, tariff. This is the tax imposed on imported goods. Sixth one, globalization. This is increasing global economic connection. Seventh one, trade balance. This is difference between exports and imports. Eighth one, comparative advantage. This is the ability to produce goods at lower opportunity cost. Excellent work, everyone. These terms are very important in understanding how international trade works and how countries cooperate in the global economy. Alright, everyone, and now I would like you to watch an interesting video which would help you to strengthen your knowledge relating the topic passive voice.
Let's talk about the passive voice. The passive voice is more common in written English than spoken English, and we often hear it used in news reports and other types of stories. This higher level grammar target can be a bit tricky, so let's take a closer look. Here we go. Ellie. First, we'll compare the active and passive voices in English. Next, we'll look at the function and form of the passive voice. Then we'll look at how to conjugate verbs in different tenses in the passive. Finally, we'll see some examples of the passive voice before trying some practice exercises. Let's start by comparing these two voices. In a regular sentence, also known as the active voice, there's a subject that performs the action, a verb, which is the action, and an object, which receives the action. In the passive voice, this is reversed. The receiver of the action, which is the object of an active sentence, now becomes the subject of the passive sentence. The verb changes into a passive verb. The former subject of the active sentence that performs the action moves into an object position. Let's look at an example. The active sentence, "The children ate the cookies," becomes, "The cookies were eaten by the children," in the passive voice. Now let's talk about the function of the passive voice. Why do we use the passive voice in English? There are two cases where we want to focus on the receiver of the action. First, it might not be important to know who performed the action. It might only be extra information, or it might be so obvious that we don't need to say it. For example, if we said, "The tests were handed in," it's pretty obvious that it was by the students. You can drop that information if you want. The second case is when we don't even know who performed the action. This is often the case in news reports. For example, if we said, "A man got mugged outside a popular restaurant last night," we don't know who mugged the man. Therefore, the passive voice is a natural choice in this case. Now let's take a closer look at how passive verbs are formed in English. The passive verb pattern is the auxiliary verb be or get plus the past participle form of the main verb. Be plus past participle can be formal or informal. Get plus past participle is very informal and is more common in spoken English than written. For example, the work was completed on time. The work got completed on time. There is no difference in meaning in these two sentences. The past participle of a regular verb is formed by adding ed. For example, ask becomes asked, and stop becomes stopped. The past participle of an irregular verb has some kind of change to the verb form. For example, write becomes written, and tell becomes told. So how do we conjugate the passive voice into different verb tenses? With passive verbs, the tense is shown entirely within the auxiliary verb, and this is always followed by the past participle form of the main verb. For example, the simple future is formed by the modal will, plus a base verb in the active voice. In the sentence, Lee will make my birthday cake tomorrow, will is followed by the base verb make. To make this sentence passive, we need the simple future form of be or get, which becomes will be or will get, plus the past participle of make, which is made. So the simple future passive sentence is, my birthday cake will be made by Lee tomorrow, or my birthday cake will get made by Lee tomorrow. Now let's look at more common tense conjugations for passive verbs. Let's use the auxiliary verb be and the verb make for these examples. Let's look at simple tenses first. In the simple present tense, the active form is make or makes, depending on the subject. The passive form becomes am, is, or are, plus made. Progressive tenses aren't that common in the passive voice, but the present progressive tense is an exception. Am, is, or are making in the active voice becomes am, is, or are being made in the passive. In the simple past, made becomes was or were made. Will make becomes will be made in the simple future tense. Now we'll look at the perfect tenses. In the present perfect tense, has or have made becomes has or have been made. Had made becomes had been made in the past perfect tense, and will have made becomes will have been made in the future perfect. Finally, let's look at what happens with modals. For present modals such as should, can, might, must, etc., the modal, for example should, plus the base verb make becomes should be made in the passive voice. An example of a past modal is should have made, which becomes should have been made. Okay, let's look at some examples of sentences in the passive voice. My essay is being reviewed by my professor. This is an example of a passive sentence in the present progressive tense. Be becomes is being, and reviewed is the past participle. Did you remember that we can make this more informal by using get instead of be? We could also say, my essay is getting reviewed by my professor. The tickets were sold out within the first 5 minutes. Oh! This is a simple past passive sentence. We can say, got sold out to make it more informal. There's no by someone phrase in this sentence because it's obvious that the action was performed by the ticket sellers. Here, we can say the project had been completed or had gotten completed by the time I got to the office. Woo! This is a past perfect passive sentence. In this sentence, by the time is a time marker. We've dropped by someone because we don't know who completed the project, or it's not important to include that information. Now it's time to see what you've learned. Can you change these active sentences into the passive voice? Let's see. Fill in the blanks with the passive verb. don't forget to use the same tense as the active sentence. That's right. He waters the garden every morning becomes the garden is watered by him every morning. The simple present verb waters becomes is watered or gets watered in the passive voice. You got it. Amazon will deliver the package tomorrow becomes the package will be delivered by Amazon tomorrow. This is a simple future passive sentence with the modal will. So will is followed by the base form of be or get plus the past participle delivered. Good job. The mechanic has repaired their car becomes their car has been repaired by the mechanic. The present perfect passive is formed with have or has plus been or gotten plus the past participle. It would also be very common to drop by the mechanic, since that's pretty obvious. Yep, that's it. You should do your chores right after dinner becomes your chores should be done right after dinner. The base form of the auxiliary be or get follows the modal should, and this is followed by the past participle done. We can drop by you, again, since it's obvious. Did you get that one right? The past perfect passive of the verb send is had been sent. Note that this sentence includes two phrases with by, one for the performer of the action and one for the time marker.
And now for homework, you should imagine that two countries are making a trade agreement. Write a formal proposal about their cooperation in 250 or 300 words. You need to explain what goods will be traded. For example, oil, technology, food, cars, cotton, electronics. Whether tariffs will be imposed or reduced. What economic benefits both countries will get. And use at least 3 passive voice sentences. For example, goods will be exported. Tariffs will be reduced. And you can invent the countries or use real countries like Uzbekistan or South Korea. And that was the end of today's lesson. I hope everything will be fine in your life, and I wish you good luck and see you in the next lessons. Goodbye.